Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be comparing the Action Trackchair with the Outrider Coyote. The Action Trackchair has been around since 2008. It's a well-known organization that's been serving tons of veterans worldwide and has become one of the go-to options for off-road mobility in this space. Outrider has been around since 2009 and has been making various types of vehicles, with a recent entry about 2 years ago with the Outrider Coyote four-wheel drive. It's our goal in this video to provide honest, solid feedback and information that you can take to the bank and have an honest comparison between the Outrider Coyote specs with the Action Trackchair. That being said, there are various versions of the Action Trackchair as well as various configurations of the Outrider Coyote. So as a whole, we're going to try to present the best of each model and compare the capabilities at the highest level of each model offering with each other, so it's a fair apples to apples comparison rather than picking a base model from one organization and the premium model from the other and making that comparison. Alright, so starting off, the Action Trackchair. Again, the Action Trackchair has been in this space for a while. It's one of the well-known offerings that can be purchased through veterans organizations like the VA and the Independence Fund. It's been a staple in the community and there's a good reason for it. It's a solid platform, it's eye-catching. There's nothing quite like it, and honestly, the badass track setup on the Action Trackchair makes it something that can't help but grab attention from riders and passers-by when the machine's out in the wild. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail on the Trackchair and talk about some of the unique advantages and compare that with the Outrider Coyote. So starting off, one of the unique advantages of the Action Trackchair is the standing capability. Like many off-road wheelchairs, or for that matter on-road power chairs, the standing capability has really opened up a ton of options for getting out there, being eye level with other folks that are out and about, able-bodied individuals, and being able to have conversations at eye level, do everyday tasks like getting up and washing the dishes, or whatever is required. And you can see on Action Trackchair's website that they have a good example of this in operation, as they've got the machine out on a ranch and a fella's doing some kind of common tasks that you do around the farm, driving through the mud and slop, and it makes all those things possible since it can stand up. That right there is a very unique advantage of the Action Trackchair, and there are a few other offerings in this space that can do that same type of standing while also being able to have such great off-road capability. Next unique advantage with the Trackchair is the zero-turn steering. Since it is a skid steer type operation, much like a Bobcat, it does allow the rider to turn in place like you would on a Bobcat or a zero-turn mower. There are unique advantages to this, and there are also some downsides as well. The unique advantage, of course, is you can turn around in place, so it makes maneuverability pretty unmatched as far as getting yourself into a corner and having to turn around and head in the opposite direction. One of the downsides of zero-turn steering is that at higher speeds it can become a little bit twitchy. Compared with normal steering, where your front wheels are turning left and right, that type of steering, of course, as we know, is very common and allows you to ride at higher speed without any kind of twitchiness. So that is absolutely a unique advantage of the Action Trackchair, is zero turn, but it's also partially why the speed is limited to 3 miles per hour and in some cases 4 miles per hour on the Action Trackchair. It's a low-speed machine for sure. It's got tons of torque and is very maneuverable, but it has its limitations as to how much ground you can cover at 4 miles an hour and the stability and the comfort when you're riding at a little bit of a faster clip. A unique advantage of the Outrider is the top speed. The top speed of the Outrider varies between a 14 mile an hour top speed on our higher torque model and a 17 mile per hour top speed on our higher speed model. The Action Trackchair tops out at 4 miles an hour and has a bit more torque than the Outrider, but again trades a lot of that speed off for a bit more torque. So when it comes to traveling a long distance in a reasonable amount of time, the Trackchair definitely doesn't excel in that kind of application. Another unique advantage to the Action Trackchair is the joystick configuration. With the joystick, it allows riders with essentially no upper body function except a minor amount of arm function to control the vehicle. Currently, the Outrider does not offer joystick control modes, but that is something that we plan to offer in the future. The joystick control, again, allows riders with limited function to get out there and to be able to drive the machine over rugged terrain, even though they don't have full upper body control. The Outrider does offer tri-pin controls for riders with reduced arm function, but it is limited as to the type of rider that it can allow to drive the machine safely, as it does require some shoulder function and some upper body strength to be able to control the tri-pin modules on the Outrider Coyote. Another unique advantage of the Outrider is its total vehicle weight. The Outrider can be configured to be as light as 185 pounds in its two-wheel drive variant with a single battery, or up to about 250 pounds in its four-wheel drive variant with maximum batteries with 6 kilowatt hours on board. The Action Trackchair, for comparison, has an average total vehicle weight of 400 pounds. So comparing apples to apples, a four-wheel drive Outrider Coyote with a single battery pack with 1500 watt hours on board, as compared with an Action Trackchair, weighs about half at about 200 to 205 pounds compared with the 400 pound track chair. This large difference in weight makes the Outrider much easier to transport. It also, in the edge case where you get either of these vehicles stuck, the Outrider is much easier to move and get free and be on your way again. One unique application of the Action Trackchair is pushing snow. You'll see some photos and videos of the Action Trackchair being used with a snowplow attachment to push snow off of a driveway, and that is definitely a unique application of the technology. With the wide tracks and the high torque of the low gearing, it allows the Action Trackchair to push snow comfortably. However, with that being said, the Trackchair does have lead-acid batteries, which have much reduced performance in cold weather, and so the actual range that you would see in this type of application would be very limited. So with the small driveway, it's going to do it no problem, but as you get into larger applications where you need to push snow for a longer period of time, you might start to see the limit pretty quickly. The Outrider, by comparison, has lithium-ion batteries, which still lose a bit of range in cold weather, but are going to hold up better than a traditional lead-acid battery. The maximum range on the Action Trackchair is 7 miles. The maximum range on the Outrider Coyote is 120 miles. The range ends up being one of the most significant distinguishing factors between these two machines. Let's nerd out just for a minute and go into a little bit more detail here. The Action Trackchair is equipped with a 2400 watt hour lead-acid battery, which is a very similar battery to the one that you've got in your car that you're using to start your engine. This battery technology has been around for a long time, and it's the most affordable battery technology, but it also is the most limited. It's heavy. The lifespan on these batteries is typically about 3 to 5 years, and it just doesn't offer the most energy density. The batteries on the Outrider Coyote are lithium-ion batteries, again of up to 6,000 watt hours, have a long life cycle of 500 plus cycles, and of course there's a lot more energy density with a lot less weight. So this means your pack's going to last longer, you're going to get more driving range, and you're going to be carrying a lot less weight. The lead-acid batteries are a big factor as to why the Trackchair weighs 400 pounds, whereas the average Coyote weighs about 225 pounds. Not only that, when it comes to driving range, the fact that the Action Trackchair is pushing those gnarly and awesome tracks means that it's also a lot less efficient at moving over the ground than the Coyote is with its efficient four-wheel drive. A typical outing on the Outrider Coyote that's equipped with a maximum 6,000 watt hour battery would net you about 72 miles of range off-road. In the worst case scenario, driving through deep mud and snow, you'll see an estimated 40 miles of range off-road with this setup. On a sunny day with warm temperatures and rolling hard-packed terrain, you'll see about 120 miles with the Outrider Coyote fully equipped with that max battery. It's really important for us to give people range numbers that are real, as most manufacturers are sharing range numbers that are max range numbers. We're happy to share those numbers, but we also want to share the average numbers, much like the EPA average that's now becoming a standard for electric vehicles that are sold in the US. We've taken the approach of maximizing the onboard energy storage space for the Coyote, so you can equip it with anywhere between 1 and 4 lithium-ion battery packs. Each battery pack is 1,500 watt hours in capacity and nets you 15 to 30 miles of driving range, depending on conditions. So if you opt for 2 packs, that 15 to 30 number is going to go from 30 to 60 miles of range with 2 packs on the Outrider. And if you go with the max battery option of 4 packs, you're going to have an estimated range of 60 to 120 miles. Next, let's talk about dimensions. One of the design criteria for the Coyote was to pack as much 4-wheel drive capability as possible into the smallest footprint possible. The footprint for the Coyote is 33 inches wide, 33 inches tall, and anywhere between 60 to 72 inches long. So it's 72 inches long or 6 feet long with a footrest installed, or it's 60 inches long if you remove the footrest, so 5 feet long with that footrest removed. This vehicle size allows you to fit it into the back of most SUVs, vans, or even some station wagons. The Action Trackchair has a total height of 43 inches, a length of 52.5 inches, and a width outside to outside of anywhere between 29.5 inches to 43 inches max. Their narrower NT model that allows you to fit through doorways measures 29.5 inches. The ST model, which is the wider version for more lateral stability off-road, measures 43 inches outside to outside. This is one area that's a unique advantage of the Coyote, is that it can offer a narrower track width that allows you to go through doors and also go down narrower trails without the compromise of a much higher center of gravity because of that nice low seat height. The seat height on the Coyote averages at about 16 inches, whereas the seat height on the Action Trackchair averages at about 23 inches. That means if you're riding off camber on the side of a hill, the Coyote is going to be more stable thanks to that lower center of gravity. Another unique advantage of the Action Trackchair is that they do offer child's models, some scaled down versions that are a bit smaller and a bit more affordable for smaller riders. The Outrider does offer enough adjustability that riders that are just shy of the 5-foot mark can still safely operate the vehicle, but there isn't a dedicated child's model for the Outrider. Next, let's talk about power. The max power on the Action Trackchair is 2200 watts of motor power. The max power on the Outrider Coyote is 5000 watts of motor power. The Outrider Coyote in its 2-wheel drive configuration has a power of 2500 watts. This motor power rating is going to make the biggest difference when you're climbing larger hills at higher speeds. It's also going to make a difference in your acceleration times. If you're planning to go in rougher off-road areas with more rocks and roots and those kind of things, ground clearance becomes more important. The ground clearance on the Coyote measures 7 inches on the average configuration. The ground clearance on the Action Trackchair measures about 3.5 inches. This is an important factor to consider if you plan to move over choppy, uneven ground. Charging times and charger power aren't often talked about in this space. It's very commonly talked about with long-range highway cars and trucks, but it's not often talked about with off-road mobility devices. But it's still something to consider, especially if someone's looking at covering long distances over short periods of time, or if you're offering it as some kind of off-road experience where you're taking group after group out again and again, and you can't afford to have large amount of downtime. The Coyote has an onboard 1000 watt charger, and that means that for each 1500 watt hour battery, it's going to average about 1.5 hours of charge time. So with the largest battery pack in the Coyote, it'll be about 6 hours of charge time. The Action Trackchair has a 500 watt charger. Because the battery on the Action Trackchair is a bit smaller, the charge times don't end up being too bad. It ends up being about 5 hours to charge up the 2400 watt hour onboard lead acid battery. One important note as it relates to charge times is that just looking at charge times all by themselves tends to be a little bit misleading. The best way to quantify charging power is to look at it as it relates to the onboard range of the machine. In the electric vehicle and electric car space, one way to look at it that's more commonly being used now is how many miles you can gain back on the vehicle per hour of charging. This mile per hour charge rating gives you a good estimate of how long it's going to take you to get the charge back on the unit. For the Action Trackchair, since the charge time is about 5 hours and the vehicle range is about 7 miles, that means you're going to get about 1.5 miles of range back per hour of charging. For the 2-pack Coyote, with an average of 40 mile range and a 3-hour charge time, that means you're going to get about 13 miles back for each hour that you're charging. Next, let's talk about the suspension systems. The Outrider Coyote has full air suspension front and rear with A-arm suspension in the front and trailing arm suspension in the rear. Front suspension travel is 4 inches, rear suspension travel is 6.5 inches. The Coyote has a super smooth ride thanks to the long travel and adjustable air suspension and damping system. This means that riders are going to be able to spend long periods of time on the Coyote and be comfortable even over the roughest kinds of terrain. The Action Trackchair suspension offerings vary across their range. Entry-level models do not have any suspension and will have a bit of a rougher ride, whereas the premium models, such as the STS, do offer suspension. The STS's suspension specifications are fairly limited, other than the fact that it is equipped with a torsion spring suspension system, but no specific numbers as far as wheel travel or damper type. Total rider weight capacity is 300 pounds on both machines. Another unique advantage of the Action Trackchair is that currently there are a lot more funding options for the Trackchair. It's much easier to come across funding assistance currently for the Trackchair because they've done such a great job of marketing it to the veteran community. So there's some major channels such as the VA hospitals, as well as the Independence Fund and some others as well. So this means that somebody looking for financial assistance will likely have a much easier time finding it for the Action Trackchair than the Outrider Coyote. We're currently working hard to open up new funding channels for the Outrider, but it's also an uphill battle, especially with the VA and being such a large organization that can take a good while to get on board with a newer technology. That being said, Outrider being around since 2009, we've got a solid track record and we expect that the VA will approve funding assistance within the next year or so. One of the most common looked at applications for the Action Trackchair, as well as the Outrider Coyote, is hunting. Each machine offers its own unique advantages for hunting, and it'll really be up to you as the rider or user to figure out which machine is a better fit for you. One of the unique advantages of the Outrider is its range and its top speed. With those capabilities, it means that you can go from your house over a long distance to your hunting spot if you're in an area where that's possible. Whereas typically for the Action Trackchair, you'd have to load it up into a vehicle, transport it in very close proximity to your hunting spot, and then take it the last couple miles to your spot. The unique advantage for hunting with the Action Trackchair is again the ability to stand, provided you opt for a model that has that capability. This can make it easier to handle the firearm and get in a more ergonomic position, whereas on the Coyote, you're going to be shooting from the seat. This is of course still possible with a pair of shooting sticks or a center mounted post for the rifle, but it really comes down to user preference. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to vehicle safety. We'll just talk about the couple things that are most relevant here in comparing these two vehicles. Center of gravity is something that's important with vehicles like this, as we've got fairly narrow track widths here and potentially fairly significant off-camber angles that these vehicles might be traveling on. With center of gravity, the Outrider definitely has a lower center of gravity and is going to be less prone to tipping. The Outrider is also lighter, so in the case that you tip it or tip the Action Trackchair, the Outrider is much less likely to cause damage than the much heavier Action Trackchair. That being said, when it comes to raw speed, the Outrider offers a good bit more speed with that max speed of 17 miles per hour. We've made it a point to not make the Outrider able to go faster than a typical bike rider could go, or a person in an all-out sprint, as the human frame's only able to handle so much speed. That's where we landed about that 17 mile an hour mark to make sure that the speed on this machine wouldn't ruffle feathers. With the lower top speed of the Action Trackchair, you're inherently not putting a rider in as much risk because they're not moving at such speeds. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, we have many folks ask us again and again what the differences are between the Coyote and the Action Trackchair. The best answer we can give is that they're two different tools for different jobs. Kind of like comparing a screwdriver with a hammer. You wouldn't really use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, and you wouldn't really use a hammer to screw in a screw. So for whatever that's worth, we find the Outrider Coyote to be the right fit for certain jobs and certain riders. Whereas we often also recommend the Action Trackchair for different riders with different needs. Hope this video helps you to really boil down what you're looking for in a machine and understand which of these two vehicles is going to better suit you. If you want something that's going to have an experience that feels more like riding a bike, allow you to move at a bit more speed, the Coyote is probably going to be the way to go. If you want something that's more like moving around on foot, as you would at walking speeds and with eye-to-eye contact with other individuals, then it's likely that the Action Trackchair might be the better fit for you. There's plenty more here to go into with more detail that could be expounded on for both of these vehicles, but we're only going to take so much time in this video to really dig in. So I hope there's enough info here that it really helps you out. If you got any questions, feel free to ask us in this comments section or reach out to us via info@outriderusa.com, or you can call us at 828-654-7555. And again, we encourage you to look into each of these things that we've talked about and compare notes, and I hope that you find that all the information that we provided here is really honest and truthful as far as the comparison between these two machines. Thank you all very much, and we hope you have a great day. Take care.